and welcome to yet another exciting edition of your favorite Sunday morning program, Media Monitor, here on the SABC News channel with myself, Alicia Jali, as your host, and we're going to be together for the next hour. Coming up on today's show, we're going to start by looking at Molefe's shocking reappointment as Eskom CEO and also interrogate the service delivery protest that took place in various parts of the country. We're also going to explore the campaign dynamics of the NC's presidential race now that former ANC Treasurer Matthews Phosa has thrown his hat in the ring. We'll also bring you an update of the NC's transformation discussion policy convening at Luthuli House later on in the program if we do get through. But first, let's take a quick look at the news headlines at 9 a.m. Human Settlements Minister Lindiwe Sisulu will today hear the concerns of communities south of Johannesburg that embarked on protests last week. Annandale, Eldorado Park, Finetown, Kliptown and other areas were scenes of violence, vandalism of property and looting of shops. Police arrested more than 50 people for public violence, and residents took to the streets over a lack of housing, jobs, as well as the illegal invasion of land in the area. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has again called for the need to implement the policy of radical economic transformation on the country's economy. Ramaphosa was addressing the SATU Gala dinner in Durban last night. He says it's not acceptable that the economy only benefits a few. Ramaphosa also called for the need of the ruling party to strengthen and renew itself as it faces unprecedented challenges. And then some good news there in your sporting front. Quinton de Kock has cleaned up at the Cricket South Africa Awards that were held at Kalami last night. Not only was the 24-year-old named Cricketer of the Year, but he also scooped up another 4 awards for his outstanding contributions for the Proteas across all formats. Kagiso Rabada was meanwhile presented with the Delivery of the Year award, and Imran Tahir walked away with the T20 Cricketer of the Year, while Sune Lewis was awarded the Women's Cricketer of the Year and Lizette Lear received the Women's Players Player of the Year. Congratulations to all of them. All right, let's welcome our guests on the show today. Let's welcome with me SABC Digital News producer, Mr. Tshepiso Moche. Tshepiso, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Alicia, and thanks for having me. All
right, we're going to talk to you just now, Tshepiso. Let me introduce the rest of the panelists today. We do have media specialist, Mr. Shoni Makari, as well as political analyst, Mr. Zamikaya Maseti. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Very good morning this cold Sunday in Joburg.
It's very cold indeed, but thank you so much for waking up and braving the cold. And we are expecting to be joined by Mr. Joma Voso, who will be joining us from our Pretoria studios. Tshepiso, let's take it away. What were the biggest hashtags of this week?
Alicia, the biggest hashtag this week was the protest.
Yeah.
And this comes after several parts of the country were experiencing protests, including Northwest.
And violent protests, yes, so to speak.
And we saw a house, actually 4 houses in Northwest were set alight shortly after the 2 men who were accused of murdering a 16-year-old boy in Northwest were granted bail. And that sparked a lot of anger in the community. And we saw, as you can see on the screen, pictures of some houses in Northwest that were set alight, and it also went to Gauteng also, where protests took place, in Kimberley where protests took place also. And here are some of the visuals of parts of Eldorado, Annandale and Dobsonville that saw protests.
Yeah, but do we have any tweets on this topic, Tshepiso, before I ask my gentleman? Because it seems we have 2 different types of protests in here. One is a service delivery, and the other one, we do know it's about the boy that got killed, and those gentlemen actually got bail. Amanda Watson, they say scenes from the hashtag Annandale, where residents and police fought today after hashtag Finetown protest yesterday, and leaders have called for time and calm.
Yes, and this one, it says, no man, I see a farmer assaulting a black cameraman and police aren't doing anything much about this. What's happening? Hashtag Colini. And this comes after a photographer was attacked by a farmer, and it's also alleged that one of the farmers held a gun against photographers who were in his yard.
My goodness, let's take one more from Mario Kumali. Says the solution for the hashtag Enadel protest, let's evict all illegal immigrants in our cities and let the people of the land enjoy their forefathers' legacy. Quickly take one from Pablo.
This one is from Pablo, where he says, where are all white people who were marching up and down the streets last month screaming Zuma must fall? Hashtag Colini.
We had to have that one. Gentlemen, I want to hear your views, particularly on the two different types of protests that we're seeing here. I mean, Anadel's over service delivery, the housing projects and all of that. And then Colini, a totally different issue.
Absolutely, Alicia. I think starting with the issue of housing protests, I actually think that this is a case of chickens coming home to roost. Election after election, people are promised houses and nothing of substance is really okay. Granted, we built over 2 million houses, but let's understand the fact that the demand was quite high. But also, it was a strategic blunder in my case, from the ANC's perspective, to say that you're actually going to build people houses. And people we create this situation where people expect that the government will do everything for them. And you need trillions of rent to be able to actually fulfill some of those promises, and we simply don't have that kind of money. But now the promises are there, and they've been made, and people want their houses.
Mr. Maset?
Well, I think these are genuine concerns. These protests, in my view, they highlight the problem that we have around land reform. There is this cry now for residential land. It means that we have to focus the discussion, change the narrative, and begin to address, because in Annandale and other areas, people are crying for residential land, and I'm hoping that the ANC will address the question of residential land when they discuss land reform. In Colini, for instance, it exposes once again those contradictions between white farmers and also white commercial farmers and their employees. Of course, people, they steal in the farm, but I don't think you have to mete out such a harsh sentence of killing a 16-year-old boy. To me, that was very harsh.
Yeah, it seems there's a big issue in Colini, because the residents there are saying, I mean, it's been going on for a while, that, they never get justice when, such matters actually happen. So let's quickly move on to the next big hashtag of this week. What was it?
Another biggest hashtag this week was Brian Molefe.
Ah, yes. And we're talking about that a little later on the show. But what have you got for us on the social media front? What were people saying there?
Well, this one from Mashudu says, hashtag Brian Molefe. Molefe had to push the nuclear deal either in the finance ministry or as CEO of Eskom. The mandate hasn't changed.
I like that, because that's the picture there.
Yes, I mean, this one sparked a lot of commentary on social media. This is apparently Brian Molefe. People are not sure whether he's going or coming, because the last time we heard Brian Molefe was leaving Eskom, and now he's coming back, and we're not sure whether he'll stay or he'll go. He'll actually resign again.
More pictures coming through, very interesting. Trending essay says, Prince Matyeka says, when you hear Brian Molefe is going back to hashtag Eskom and nobody ain't saying anything about you, hashtag Brian Molefe. Mr. Maset?
Well, I think this Brian Molefe saga once again exposes the contradictions within the ANC. The center clearly cannot hold. The minister is saying this, the ANC spokesperson is saying this. You see an ANC which is not in control of its own deployees in terms of the ministers. So it remains to be seen how this will play itself out. But it exposes again those weaknesses within the ANC as a ruling party.
Let's go to Pretoria now and welcome Mr. Joe Mavuso. Mr. Mavuso, a very good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Do tell us, what did you make about some of the developments? I know we're going to discuss it in further detail with you, but just the social media reaction to the reinstatement of Brian Molefe as the Eskom CEO.
Hi, good morning, and happy Mother's Day to you and all our mothers out there.
Thank you, sir.
The issue of Mr. Molefe, the issue of Mr. Molefe is really a mind-boggling issue, a matter, but it's also kind of an insult to the leadership in South Africa, because I think we've produced so much that no individual can only be able to lead an institution like Eskom. There are many people inside and outside Eskom that can begin to take the entity forward.
All right, Mr. Mavuso, we'll get into further details on this topic in a short while. So let's go on and move on to our final big hashtag of this week. What was it?
The final hashtag for this week was Karabo Mokoena.
Oh, yes. This beautiful, beautiful girl that got murdered, apparently by her boyfriend.
Yes, and he appeared in court on Friday. And this generated a lot of commentary and ended up having another hashtag that was trending, men are trash.
Even the UN women commented on the brutal killing of Karabo. Let's hear some tweets there. Nosipo Malangabi says, I will teach my son that women should be loved and protected, and no matter what happens between them, he must learn to walk away. Hashtag RIP Karabo. Thank you so much, Nosipo. If mothers can do that, if all our mothers can actually teach their sons how to treat women. Let's take the next tweet.
The next tweet is from Bontle saying, RIP Karabo, got me thinking about what kind of world am I raising my daughter in if I'll never be able to protect her from such evil. Sad.
And a final one from Fred there says, why would you kill the person you claim to love and have the courage to even burn the body? Which satisfaction did you get? Karabo. Hashtag rest in peace. Mr. Makari, what do you think about this?
I think there's no other way of saying this except the violence against women by their intimate partners. It's just genocide.
Yeah.
Over 1,000 women are killed in this country. This is like 5 times the average, the global average when it comes to violence against women by their intimate partners. I mean, we're talking about women being murdered every 6 hours in this country. It's incredible, quite frankly. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Mr. Maseti, a quick
Well,
one from
it's
you,
very,
sir.
very painful to me as a parent, and I so wish that we can begin to deal with some of the problems in our communities and societies. It reflects once again this young man's socialization. It might have to do with how he grew up in these communities. So to me, that's one of those things that we have to deal with, and I'm hoping that when the ANC discusses these social transformation issues, the social fabric of our communities and societies, it's something that we must pay attention to.
Well put. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Zepiso, that URL for our viewers at home. Quickly.
Well, Alicia, viewers at home can catch this show and other shows on our YouTube channel by simply searching for SABC Digital News on YouTube. Alternatively, they can visit www.sabc.co.za/news.
All right, you're going to find it all there in Media Monitor is coming up when it finishes at 10 o'clock. There it is. It's on your screen, so you have no excuse. When we return, we're going to discuss the highly criticized reappointment of Brian Molefe back to Eskom. Let's take a quick ad break. We're back after that.
The Kalahari Transportier Park is a large wildlife preserve and conservation area in southern Africa. Kalahari means place of thirst. The total area is 38,000 square kilometers. Approximately 3/4 of the park lie in Botswana and 1/4 in South Africa. South Africa embraced the concept of transportiers linking ecological reserves across national borders. On the 12th of May 2000, President Festus Mogae of Botswana and Thabo Mbeki of South Africa formally launched South Africa's first peace park. It has 200 species of birds, including vultures, mammalians such as black Kalahari lions, and large herds of herbivores, namely elands, springboks, blue wildebeest, and more.
Welcome back. The reinstatement of Brian Molefe as the CEO of Power Utility Eskom has been met with widespread criticism this past week. Eskom board spokesperson Kulani Qoma said Molefe did not resign but had actually applied for early retirement, and that is exactly why the board was able to reinstate him. Now, Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown accepted Eskom board's decision to reinstate Molefe irrespective of the public outrage and the damning public protective findings against him. Meanwhile, the ANC has issued a statement distancing itself against the latest developments and further questioning the reappointment, while opposition parties have condemned the reappointment and have vowed to legally challenge the reinstatement. Now, Molefe is expected to report back at Eskom's headquarters tomorrow on the same terms and conditions of his previous contract. Let's find out more on this insert.
I don't know.
Brian Molefe at the center of controversy once again. The Eskom board says the Sunday Times is responsible for Molefe's return to Eskom. The newspaper published a story recently saying Eskom wanted to pay Molefe a 30 million rand golden handshake, but that had been blocked by Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown.
The board decided to rescind the decision of granting Molefe early retirement, and by virtue of doing that, then legally, automatically he was then entitled to his job as we know it.
The ANC has slammed the decision.
We condemn the decision taken by the board of directors of Eskom to reinstate the former CEO. We condemn it because when he left the power utility, he left it following the damaging state of the capture report released by the public protector, which made certain observations about him. And correctly, he deemed it necessary that on the basis of the public protector's report, that he considered it necessary that he must resign.
Eskom maintains that Molefe is clean.
When a person is being excluded from participating in public life, like it appears to be the case with Molefe, it should be because, a legitimate structure of democracy has found him guilty. He's not guilty. He's as clean as they come.
ANC says it's still trying to secure a meeting with Minister Lynn Brown to discuss the matter. Mbongini Mutwa, SABC News, Johannesburg.
I want to get your reactions to the reinstatement of Brian Molefe as the CEO of Eskom, Mr. Makari.
Alicia, it just shows how delicate reputation as an asset is, because he's the man who essentially, on his watch, we dealt with blackouts, and everybody started hailing him as one of, this type of leader we need in our parastatals. And then he goes fraternizing with the Guptas. We get the state of capture report, and then, of course, everything else unfolded. So he has lost all credibility, and I don't think his going back will help the institution at all. If anybody, and I mean, in fact, one of the reasons why that he cited when he left the institution was that he was living in the interest of good governance. So whatever happened to that idea? Exactly what does he think he brings back? Because now he comes as someone who has a tarnished image. By association, the institution, we will never be able to get past that.
Yes, but Shoni, they're saying he's not guilty. Nothing has been proven, so he's innocent until proven guilty, Mr. Maseti.
Alicia, I'm beginning to support the call for the judiciary to review this thing. The problem here is the Eskom board. The advert went out, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago. They were hunting out someone who can best replace Brian Molefe, and then all of a sudden they make this move. It has to do with issues of governance. There are issues which I think will have to be interrogated. If I was the Minister of Public Enterprise, I would have fired or dissolved that board. But here we see a situation where the Minister is saying something totally different from the ruling party. And once again, you can see that the ANC as a ruling party has no control at all over the Minister of Enterprise. So you have the board which doesn't know what it is supposed to be doing in terms of King's 4 and whatever reports. But issues of governance here and labor relations, I think they are being flouted by the Eskom board. And in my view, Brian has no entitlement to that job. It went out, it was advertised.
Yes.
What is happening to those candidates who were shortlisted?
Mr. Mavoso, maybe let's hear your reactions as well. I think we also should have maybe gotten a view from a labor specialist to tell us if this that the board has given as an explanation is indeed legal. What do you think, sir?
I think the conduct of the board is quite delinquent. They are flying the policies of labor and good governance out of the window, and that can be dangerous for our image as a country and as a government. And I think once all is being said and done, we can only appeal to the conscious and to the person being Brian Molefe to say, yes, we are being used at the moment, maybe by the board, but where do you position yourself? Why do you allow yourself to hold the country to ransom? Because at the end of the day, we have got many and plenty skills and talent in our country that can begin to occupy the position. As we are already heard that the position has been advertised and expectations has been created that someone will come to lead the organization. Internally and externally, we have got plenty expertise to begin to do so. So I personally think the board must now be investigated and be fixed, because now it is complicit and it is quite affected by this whole management of Eskom, and they begin to choose sides and they know what they are doing. Perhaps an investigation can begin to deal with them so that we can move on as a country.
But then, gentlemen, I mean, we've just seen on this clip here the ruling party distancing itself from this reinstatement. So then, what do you think is the issue here then? Who should we be blaming for this, Mr. Maseti?
Well, I think the ANC must begin to...
And the minister is a deployee of the ruling party.
To tighten the control over its deployees. It's a pity, Alicia, you know, in the 90s we had this debate about the ANC being the political center,
yes,
meaning that all those who are deployed, whether you're a director general, minister, will account to this center which we understood as the ANC. But now this center is beginning to disintegrate. Ministers do as they wish. There is no one who is accountable. Clearly, I think we have to blame the ANC as a ruling party. It has to do something. If it means that we have to see another reshuffle, this one, it will be justifiable, because the minister is undermining the law and is making us look as fools. We are battling with issues of downgrade. You know, all these things will, in one way or the other, affect on how we build this economy going forward.
I mean, Alicia, ideally, the politicians shouldn't even have anything to do with the running of state institutions.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, we should be looking at the ethical conduct of the board of these institutions, because often people talk about the legality of issues, and to me, the people in those positions should hold themselves to higher standard, higher ethical standards. Never mind what the law says about the situation. And we don't suddenly we're splitting hair about whether it was a resignation or it was an early retirement. It does not matter. It means no, never mind. The idea is that this man said he wants to clear his name. Clearly, back then, he thought it was important for him, his reputation to be held, in high regard. Suddenly, he doesn't seem to care about that anymore.
Mr. Mavoso, but a lot of people are saying, I know my gentleman mentioned it, in fact, Shawnee mentioned it in studio, that Mr. Molefe was hailed as the hero who brought load shedding to an end. But now, why this public outrage when he's being put back at the parastatal, in your view?
Because it was his job. He's paid to do that. It's not like it is not expected that he should perform. Remember, wouldn't I have known if other people would have done the job or not? Before Brian, there was a gentleman, Sidiso, I think Matona, who just acted for a few months, less than 6 months. We don't know if we would have managed to do better than Brian or what, but his turnaround strategy, he's making sure that there's no load shedding. It was his job as the head of Eskom to begin to bring us what we expect, because the economy relies on Eskom and everything for us to move forward as a country. It is the leadership as incumbent in the CEO, the board, to begin to take us forward. So to me, it's nothing extraordinary. We are paying them very handsomely so that they can do the good job.
All right, now the 30 million rand that was supposedly the option that was not to be taken here, and rather the reinstatement. Do you think that is a fair explanation there, Mr. Maseti?
Let's start with this 30 million. How long will it take the three of us to accumulate that huge pension?
Don't even look at me.
It's questionable. Brian has been with Eskom for less than 2 years.
Yeah.
And the question therefore arises as to how did he accumulate that controversial figure, 30 million? I've been working for the past 20 years, but I don't think I'm
Let's not be bitter, gentlemen.
But really, you know, Alicia, what worries me most here is that the presidential report on the state-owned enterprises, which was spearheaded by Deputy President Ramaphosa, addresses issues of governance. And now we find a situation where someone is trying to nestle a 30 million, which we don't understand how it was accumulated or calculated in terms of pension payouts. So it worries me once again. We still have to see the Presidential Commission on the State-Owned Enterprises dealing with these issues, and then we have this embarrassing situation. And once again, it says a lot about all these commissions and things that we set up in government, but we fail to implement and follow whatever recommendations to the
And the
final
call for
conclusion.
everybody that was fired then to come back, do you think that is a legitimate call then, Shani? A very quick one.
For him to come back to...
For everybody that was fired at Eskom during his tenure to also be brought back to come and work at the parastatal?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think there's got to be progress. They were there to deal with specific situations, and we've gone past that. I don't think there's any justification for those people to come back.
All right. Well, we've run out of time on that topic. We're going to take a quick ad break, and after that, we touch base with SABC reporter Aldrin Sampear out in Luthuli House for us. Do stay tuned. Well, a very good morning and welcome to AM News live at 10:00 hours across all Central Africa regions.
A fitting send-off for a revolutionary giant, a life dedicated in service of the people.
The result means that the Swallows are out of the ABC Municipal League and drop to the amateur fourth tier of South African football, the SAB League.
Tune in on AM News every Saturday and Sunday from 10 hours.
All right, welcome back. Let's now go live to Luthuli House for the ANC's weekly media briefings ahead of the June policy conference. Let's touch base with our reporter on the scene, Aldrin Sampear. Aldrin, what have you got for us this morning? Do go ahead. All right, we don't seem to have our reporter there. That is Aldrin Sampear, supposed to be giving us all the rundown of what we can expect when that media briefing actually takes place. But let's now move on to our next story on the protest action. Protests erupted in various parts of Gauteng and the Northwest this past week. The latest bout of protests started in Annandale and nearby Eldorado Park townships on Monday. And on Wednesday, residents of Shantytown in Lodium, west of Pretoria, demonstrated demanding electricity in their homes. And Gauteng Human Settlements MEC Paul Mashatile visited Annandale, south of Johannesburg, following the almost week-long violent protests over housing. Mashatile says residents of Annandale will know next week when government will actually start building them houses. And in Marikana, protests erupted over lack of employment in the surrounding mines. Meanwhile, several roads around Davidsonville near Roodepoort, west of Johannesburg, were closed to traffic due to an ongoing community protest there on Friday. And residents there were protesting over illegal electricity connections as well as illegal mining in the area. Here's more on this clip.
Another enraged community, but not related to service delivery. This community is tired of crime in the area and accuse police of incompetence.
The report police station is not helping us. The situation in this area is dire, my brother. It's very dire. You are even afraid. At 5 o'clock you have to lock your gate.
They take bribes. It's what they are doing. It's what they see them daily doing. It's their work. They are no longer servicing the community.
Residents say robberies, rape and even murder have increased here. They blame illegal mining for the scourge. Illegal mining is rife in this community. This is one of the shafts used by Zamazamas. They're usually armed, dangerous and ruthless. They're accused of being behind the terror in the community.
This very same illegal miners, most of them have got guns. They started coming inside our houses.
They break into our houses while we are asleep. At times they will rape your wife, maybe, and shoot at you, sometimes kill you.
This family, the latest victims, criminals stormed their house on Sunday night.
5 to 11,
Around about 5 to 11, two men came here. David responded to the knock. They demanded his phone and his wallet, and David refused. They shot him on his right hand and then raped his girlfriend.
Police officials have promised swift action.
Those corruption of the police, we have taken note of your concerns. Starting from now on, we're going to deal with them.
Meanwhile, Police Minister Fikile Mbalula says the government will intensify the fight against crime.
We're all over and working with our communities, ensuring that there is visible policing all the time, but equally we become smart in fighting against crime.
Mbalula has called on communities to work closely with police. Mangwaba Mchudu, SABC News, Johannesburg.
What's going on here, gentlemen? We usually have something, a phenomenon known as strike season. Is this now what we can call protest season? And is there any reason for the massive eruption of these protests across the country, Mr. Masiti?
Well, Alicia, this is the beginning. Remember, we're in the downgrade.
Yeah.
and our communities, I think now they are beginning to feel the pain. Well, it's not just them. You'll see various sections of our societies, the middle class. So this is the beginning of the crisis. What that shows is that our communities are vulnerable. For instance, the fight against crime. We have to make sure that maybe we go back to those strategies that we used in the 80s when we had strong street committees to avoid this high wave of crime. So those are some of the measures that maybe at community level we have to deal with. For instance, some of the protests there about the housing shortage.
Yeah.
It means that government once again is faced with this question of land, because you can promise people houses, but if you don't have a piece of land to settle those communities, and these are some of the challenges which I hope Minister Lindwe Sisulu will deal with this afternoon. Human settlements. We need to make sure that these communities are fully integrated. There is a talk about the new mega cities, building new cities. Maybe the sooner we get to that construction of new cities, whether you talk about Pretoria, Johannesburg, but I think we're beginning to see now our communities feeling the pain, and this is the beginning of the crisis now that we're deep into the junk status.
Mr. Phosa, what do you think, sir, could have sparked or aided into this recent bout of protests, particularly service delivery protests across the country at this time in particular?
Well, two things for me. One is that there's a huge gap between political leaders and their followers. For instance, at a local municipality area, each and every municipality has got a ward councillor. And if there are issues such as these needs of housing, service delivery, the ward councillor is supposed to be the first person to hear about this and then quickly respond positively to say this is a program of the municipality, because even the provincial programs of delivery are also contained in the local strategic development plan. Then if there is no contact between the councillor and the ward people, then we begin to see things erupting overnight as if we never knew that there were crises. Two, we are going to see this thing happening all over the country now on, because the other areas, they've got the similar challenges, and they are seeing that when you ban things, you protest in this fashion, then government responds faster and quicker. And this is not supposed to be the case.
Yeah.
Government should not be reactionary. They should lead according to the plan that is there, and it does exist. There are budgets that are out there for all these things that the communities are complaining about. Therefore, when we don't work with our communities quite closely, and we don't reach out to our communities, this will be the happening. And I'm afraid, once El Dorado Park in Adel cools down, it's going to erupt elsewhere.
Shani, what do you think is one major event that could have particularly aided to these violent protests?
Well, there's the issue, to Mr. Mafuso's point earlier, that we now have a culture where when we do not get, say, service delivery, or we're not getting what we should be getting, we respond violently as a country. And to me, that also exposes the issue of, especially with the Colini situation, that there is very little faith in our justice system. People do not believe that if they go through the courts, proper justice will be delivered.
But I mean, that's the one thing that apparently we have that is solid in this country. That is our judiciary.
Well, the judiciary obviously only adjudicates matters on issues that have been brought to their attention.
True.
You still have the people acting on behalf of the state, the NPA, that needs obviously to present a solid case. And if that is not happening, the judge cannot simply issue an order on the basis of what the community feels, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So the NPA has to jack up their act to make sure that obviously they're putting cases that are strong enough to be able to get convictions. And unfortunately, because there are so many lags towards getting that justice that community expects, we have this situation where people don't actually feel that justice, will be delivered.
Speaking of that, Mr. Masetti, what do you want to say to what you've seen in terms of how the police have responded to these violent protests in certain areas?
Well, I think the new Minister of Police, Fikile Mbalula, I like his tone. But the problem is that our communities, as I was saying, they are very, very vulnerable. And as the gentleman was saying earlier, I think we need to deal with our local leaders, make sure that they deliver those services that they can afford. If they can't, they need to communicate with communities that we budgeted in terms of our development plans. But when it comes to the council resolutions, will only be able to deliver water, sanitation, maybe in the next financial year. Make communities understand those basic things, because if you don't communicate, you see this disjunction between local leaders and also maybe government structures. So our leaders must learn to communicate when it's good or bad.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I don't think we can say any more on that. We're going to take a quick ad break, and after that, we finally going to try and touch base once again with Aldrin Sampear for the ANC succession race. Do stay tuned.
Water-wise, water is an essential need. The scarcity of it could lead to loss of many lives, including livestock, plants, and much more. It requires us to use it sparingly and responsibly in times of need, failing which our taps and sanitation will not function. For more on water and weather issues, stay tuned to News Today, every Friday at 4:45 Central African Time. SABC News, making you water-wise.
Let's try again for the last time now. It is the ANC's weekly briefing on the policy conference that will continue this morning at Luthuli House. And today's discussion document is, of course, health and education. SABC reporter Aldrin Sampear is there and he joins us live for an update. Aldrin, a very good morning to you. Very, very, very ethical issues to be discussed today. What can we expect on the briefing today?
Well, certainly this morning is the discussion on education and health, which is a very topical issue in South Africa, considering that we have the NHI, which was a proposal that came from the ANC about 10 years ago. And as we stand at the moment, we only have roadshows that are currently underway. And that's the debate that the ANC is raising at the moment. Why has there been delays around the implementation of NHI? But we obviously know that there has been issues around the cost of implementing NHI. And I guess it will be a huge debate now, considering that South Africa finds itself in an economic lull where you find that the GDP of the country is not growing, and the country, of course, needs the money to implement NHI, and there are those who are against NHI. But on the other hand as well, we've known that fees must fall for the past 2 to 3 years has been a huge issue in the country. But you look at the ANC's education document, you look at this document, and you look at any other document inside of this policy proposals, inside of the policy proposals ahead of the June conference, and the ANC does not support the call for free education for everyone. The ANC supports the call for free education for the poor, and that's a huge debate, of course, because we know that many people have been calling for free education for everyone, and they've been making calls and calling on and speaking rather to the Freedom Charter, which some say that the Freedom Charter says that education shall be free for all, and the ANC has failed to implement education being free for all. We've heard from President Jacob Zuma as well, even with the establishment of the commission looking into the feasibility of free education. And if you look into the campaigns around fees must fall, especially those people who are members of the ANC's youth structures, like the Progressive Professional Forum as well, they are the people who are saying that there must be free education for all. They are not saying that there must be free education for the poor, and that's a debate that's going on currently in the ANC. And I guess it's something that we can compare to, for instance, what's happening around the debate of the ANC around the expropriation of land as well, which some believe that the ANC is not clear on that issue.
Talk to us more. I know you touched on it a little bit there, Aldrin. I mean, the cost of healthcare. You did mention that the NHI might not be implemented because of the recent economic downgrade. So what are some of the proposals that are contained in the document to try and bring this NHI to fruition?
I guess that's a question that, Alicia, we need to raise with the committee, because we need to look into and ask the committee that, considering that the country itself finds itself in a situation where it can't raise funds to implement issues such as infrastructure, and now you have the issue around NHI, and NHI hasn't been implemented wholeheartedly across the country nationally because of the issues around funds. And of course, there is the issue around people who are opposing NHI, and that's the question that we need to raise with the committee as well, that considering the situation that the country finds itself at the moment, should we scrap NHI or should we reconsider NHI as it stands at the moment?
Thank you so much, Aldrin. Please do ask those questions for us. Does this then mean that all the allocated budgets will be rescinded because, of course, of the recent downgrade? And we'll definitely touch base with you much later on during that media briefing. Maybe one more question. We've seen various ministers that have been appointed to head these policy documents. Do tell us who's facilitating this one, Aldrin.
Well, the subcommittee head of this subcommittee is Naledi Pandor. We expect that the likes of Angie Mutsecha, who would be, of course, considering that she's the Minister of Basic Education, to form part of the subcommittee. And then you have Blade Nzimande as well. And, you know, having Blade Nzimande being part of this subcommittee, being a member of this subcommittee, one can't, you can't shy away from the possibility that the question might be raised to Blade Nzimande around President Jacob Zuma's legitimacy around being president of the country, and why the SACP is calling on President Jacob Zuma to step down. So that's something that we can't shy away from.
We look forward to it, Aldrin. We'll definitely touch base with you in no time. That's around 10 o'clock. So do stay tuned to SABC News. We'll be bringing you that live media briefing right here on AM News. Gentlemen, what do you think about that? It seems like all the allocated budgets now might be rescinded because we don't have funds. Shani?
Yeah, especially, I mean, on the issue of the NHI and the issue of education. I mean, for me, I don't have a problem with free education. I think it just needs to come with strings attached.
Yeah.
Because we can't be spending, I mean, our education budget is one of the largest in the country.
True.
And yet, you know, 2-3 years after people graduate, they're in Sydney and they're in London, you know, and we're not getting the benefit of those skills. So to me, fine, let's give free education if we can afford it, but it has to come with strings attached.
We can't afford it.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mavhuso, what do you think, sir? I mean, what does this then mean for the education hopefuls that were literally depending on this funding by government, and also looking at the health sector on the fact that we might not have equal health care after all in the country?
Well, these are important pieces of policy that the ANC as the ruling party must emerge with something very clear that can take the country forward. Talking about the health issue, especially on the NHI, we need a healthy society to begin to develop this country. And without that healthy society, economy is not going to develop.
Yeah.
And the majority of our people in South Africa are dependent on public sector health more than the private sector. And the cost of health is so expensive in South Africa. So I'm thinking that the already allocated budget in this year's February should take us there while we are working out on our junk status, so that we can return back to a point where we can go out and lure investors and invest in our health system. And I've got so much trust in the current health minister that he is capable, given the circumstances, to turn the things around.
Thank you so much.
When it comes to the education, definitely, okay.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Mavhuso.
Okay, I was just wanted to also to emphasize on the point of the fees must fall. We also definitely need an educated and skilled a society to begin to turn around this economy, this slow-growing economy. Development will never be there in any country or society without skills and development. So again, the ANC as the ruling party must emerge with a clear pronouncement on the education policy.
So Mr. Mavhuso says we must be healthy, then we must have skills in order for us to develop. I agree with that, Mr. Maseti.
Well,
but now how do we achieve that?
Alicia, the reality is that the cost of doing anything in South Africa is going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
We are battling, for instance, in the rural areas with basic access to health care. We have to start there. You go to Steve Biko academics, the queues are extremely and abnormally long. So we have to start by making sure that our basic health care, for instance, you go to the rural areas, clinics, they don't have medicines. You know, to me, those are some, but the reality of the matter is that all these big dreams and promises are not going to be realized for as long as we are in this situation. We are waiting for Moody. When they come, we are finished. So all these things, we are not going to be in a position to fulfill some of these great promises that we are making. So it's going to be hard. This is just the beginning.
Yo, that doesn't make me feel good, Mr. Masesi. So let's look at another topic now. 5 years after the tragic Marikana killings, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa seeks to apologize, answering questions in the National Assembly this week. Ramaphosa, who was then a non-executive director at Lonmin, told MPs that he is prepared to visit the widows of the victims, adding that he would take guidance from Winnie Madikizela Mandela to visit Marikana, as well as the families of the 44 people that lost their lives. Meanwhile, former ANC Treasurer General Matthews Phosa says he's willing to throw his hat in the ring for the ANC's presidential race, only if he's supported by strong, incorruptible leaders. Now, last month, the ANC's Ward 52 in Langa in Cape Town announced the intention to nominate Phosa for president in the upcoming National Policy Conference in June. Gentlemen, let's talk about this. Maybe let's start with Mr. Mavhuso. Mr. Mavhuso, as Ramaphosa was cleared of any wrongdoing during the Marikana massacre by the Farlam Commission, why is he apologizing now? This was the question raised by quite a few people in this week.
Well, spoken words are very, very important and very dangerous. If you are not careful what you are saying, it can come back to haunt you. And I think he's apologizing for his utterances in the emails that were seen about the situation. But we need to acknowledge as well that the commission did not point a finger to him, that it is as a result of the utterances or the emails that people were killed. And the people who feel that he did something wrong, despite the fact that he has apologized, I think they must take him to task, maybe legally so, than just to cloud the name, because there are more serious things that we need to look at the affected families of those who were killed in Marikana, to begin to make sure that their children are growing very well and they will be contributing well to the society. I think there are more bigger important things to look at about the outcomes of Marikana. So the apology, I think it is people, we do say things sometimes that comes back to haunt us. So we can rely on the apology, but if there are people who feel that this is the cause of the death, perhaps they must take this, the Deputy President, for legal recourse, or otherwise let the country make sure that this never happens again, and we look after the widows and the children of those who passed away.
Absolutely. I mean, this is still such a very sore topic to actually even discuss, and we even have protests now of people that are living in Marikana over jobs, the lack of jobs in the mines in the area.
Absolutely, Alicia. For me, leaders must show exemplary conduct at all times.
Absolutely.
Not when they're in a corner or when it's convenient, because apologizing about several years later, we have to wonder what is the motive behind the apology. Is it because of the race, which of course is not happening, but we know it's happening, or is it because he genuinely feels that his utterances were irresponsible? So to me, that is the real issue. Not so much the apology itself. The timing of the apology bothers me somewhat in terms of looking at the man, in terms of his credentials as a leader, and that is a serious issue for me. I would have preferred that apology to have come several years earlier, not now.
South Africans, you apologize, they're not happy. You don't apologize, they're not happy. So what then?
Well,
Mr.
Alicia, we are a forgiving nation.
Yeah, we should
be. The fact that we are now joining hands with our colonizers, sharing the same borders, the same restaurants, it really shows that as South Africans, we are a forgiving nation. But I think Cyril is doing the right thing by opening up and say, I made this mistake by sending the emails. But I think they need to package a very, very strong deal for those families.
Yeah.
The Falan Commission betrayed the widows and mothers and fathers of the miners who were killed. We need to make sure that now they crowd in the private sector, especially the mining industry, in packaging a deal. You have to make sure that those families who don't have any income, they used to be supported by the miners, but now there is nothing. So part of that apology, in my view, should go with a well-packaged deal that will even begin to address some of the frustrations that came as a result of the Falan Commission. If, for instance, we can bid for a buffalo at a cost of 15 million, and nothing stops you to package a deal with that amount and say to the communities, this is what I think I can bid on your behalf.
Thank you so much there, Mr. Maseti. Mr. Phosa, last one from you. Who do you think is going to succeed? I know this is just a random question. We've got Mr. Phosa, Ramaphosa and Dlamini Zuma all up for this succession debate. And of course, who do you have your money on? If I can put you on the spot there. Who has the ethics to lead this country?
I wish I had a luxury to put my money on. I have nothing to do that with. However, let's allow the branches of the ANC to speak. Let them bring someone forward, and then towards the election, the elective conference, and begin to talk about it. But for now, it is general, as we see everyone jumping up and down and saying, I'm available, and it's not the right time yet until the branches have spoken.
Gentlemen?
Well, I think that what's happening on the we're probably going to have another Trump scenario here, where we have people who in terms of what you read in the media, they are front runners. Meanwhile, what's happening on the ground is totally different.
Totally different.
I mean, we hear rumors about people jumping from camps to another all the time. I mean, you've got people like Baleka Mbete that most people are kind of thinking, ah, no, it's never going to happen to her. And yet you talk to people on the ground, they think actually she does have a shot at this as well. At some point we had Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma as looking like a front runner.
Yes.
She makes a few utterances and then suddenly people start thinking, we wonder if this is the right candidate. Ramaphosa, you know, deputy president, you know, most people think he should be, you know,
he's
the
rightful
apparent
heir. All right, Shani, let's leave it there. Mr. Joe Mavuso, thank you so much for joining us from our Pretoria studios. I had with me Mr. Zameka Maseti, as well as Mr. Shoni Makari right here next to me in studio. Thank you for giving us an ear and watching us with Media Monitor as we analyze some of the biggest news that made us talk this week. We are back with more next week. We are back right now, though, on top of the hour with more news on AM News. Stay tuned.